It's Miss Winship. We are going to finish off these last 10 or 11 problems and do a great job doing it so that you can keep practicing and do a great job on your test Tuesday. All right, let's get busy. This is the review, Chapter 9, Sections 5 through 9, the last 20 to 30, number 20 to number 30. Okay, the discriminant of a quadratic function is 0. Remember that the discriminant is what is under the square root, b squared minus 4ac. If that is a 0, then when you were to take the square root of that, the square root of 0 is 0. When you add 0 and subtract 0, you will only get one solution. So there is one real solution. If the discriminant was positive, that would be 2 solutions. If the square root is negative, that would be no solutions because you can't take the square root of a negative. Okay, let's look at this quadratic equation, and we've got to make a decision as to how we're going to solve it. The first way is factoring. If you factor, you're going to have to do slip and slide, and if you slip and slide, you're going to have to multiply the 2 times the 7, which gives you 14. Then you have to add to get 1. I can't think of anything that multiplies to give me negative 14 and adds to give me 1, so I think I'm not going to factor. My second way is by square roots. Using square roots, you can't have this x term in the middle, so I cannot use square roots. My third method is complete the square. Since there's a number in front and it doesn't divide into each of these numbers, I don't like complete the square either. So what's the best choice? That's right, the quadratic formula. Let's go. X equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root. B squared is 1 minus 4 times 2 times negative 7. Now, do you know why I put negative 7? That's because when I took the 7 and moved it to the left, it became negative. All over 2a, which is 4. That gives me negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 4 times 2 is 8 times 7 is 56. 2 negatives, so it's 1 minus negative 56, which is 57 all over 4. Now, if you are on your Inspire calculator, you would actually type this in 2 times and get your answer. If you're on the little blue calculators, this would be your final answer. We're going to practice tomorrow typing those in so that you're very good at and successful at getting the right answers. All right, number 22. The golfer hits the ball. Here's his formula. And he wants to know how long it will take for him to return to the ground. So what you always have to do on these anytime is set it equal to 0. Now, the easiest way for this one is going to be factoring, and I'm going to take a common factor out of each of these. Well, I've got to sit here and think about what goes into both of them. 2 definitely goes into both of them, and 70. Is 70 divisible by 4? Nope, I checked, it's not. So it looks like 2 might be the greatest common factor. They also have an x in common, so I'm going to take out a 2x. Now what about this negative? Do you remember what I always told you? Take out the negative in front, it makes things easier. 2 goes into 16, 8 times x. 2 goes into 70 minus 35 equals 0. This part will always give me a 0 as long as there's a variable here. And for the 8x minus 35, I've got to take that and also make it equal 0. So you add 35 to each side, and 8x equals 35, divide by 8. And we're going to get a decimal. And when I divide, I get 4.375. Since it says round to the nearest tenth, I'm going to leave it 4.4 seconds. And that's because the 7 makes the 3 go to a 4. All right, that's our final answer there. Let's move on. Number 23, it tells us to solve by completing the square. Since I don't have a number in front, I'm going to go ahead and get busy by moving the 10 to the other side. Then I need to add a blank to each side. Half of 4 is 2, and 2 squared, is 4. And add 4 to each side, and that gives me 14. Oh, can you hear the buzzer? That means my dinner's ready. Okay, then I have to take the square root of each side, and x plus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 14. subtract 2 from each side, and x equals, remember the 2 likes to go in front, plus or minus the square root of 14. Again, if I had my Inspire calculator, I would type that in. Half of your test is going to tell you to leave it in radical or square root form. The other half of your test is going to have you leave it in decimal form. Let's get busy with 24. I like this one. It's pretty simple. I have a rectangle. The area is 124. The length is 4 times the width. So if this is the width, then the length is 4 times that. Now I just have to multiply length times width is 4w times w equals 124. There's no distributive property here. I just have to multiply the coefficients and add the exponents. Then divide by 4. We're solving by using square roots. And w squared equals 31. Take the square root of 31. Now this one definitely says to round to the nearest tenth.